evening. Thanks for joining us for a special report online. I'm Brett Baer. If this is your first time, welcome aboard. Different forum. Continue the conversation. Ask a question. Make your comment. Weigh in. Don't worry if you don't see it right away. Producers are putting it in as fast as they can. We have Jonah, Mara, Charlie, and Charles here. We left off talking about this FBI investigation and the complaint that was filed that left out kind of a big deal, an ISIS leader. And this is the same guy who, in the New York Times, Abu Muhammad al-Adnani, in an audio message back in July, audio message released May 21st, Islamic State spokesman Abu Muhammad al-Adnani made clear that the organization would revert to its roots as a guerrilla insurgency, implicitly acknowledging that it would eventually lose its strongholds in Syria and Iraq and the very caliphate that it distinguished it from al-Qaeda and other terrorist groups. Mr. Adnani, who oversees the Islamic State's external operations, repeated his call for supporters to attack the group's enemies wherever and however possible. And here's this guy, Rahami, who has writings about Adnani in this journal that was recovered after the shootout.
I think the administration is sort of undercutting and discrediting itself. You go back, I mean, it isn't even the administration. You go to the mayor of New York, who all he would say at the beginning, this was an intentional act, saying that he was asserting that this was not spontaneous combustion in a dumpster. I mean, this is what they say. Remember the attack in Philadelphia, where you could see the gunman on the video approach the cop, pull out the gun, wearing a robe. It's open and shut. And he says, and he went into a riff, was it the police chief or the mayor? I think it was one or the other, saying this was clearly not an act of terrorism. I mean, at a certain point, nobody listens and nobody believes. Why they continue with this is hard to understand. But this administration will be out of office, and I don't think we will ever see an administration that is going to act in such a really laughable way at this point. It's beyond laughter. But because what they have allowed to happen is the growth of a malignant organization with a territorial base and a reach all over the world, and denying that anything of significance has happened. Obama, in his speech at the UN, said that the violence in the world has decreased. I think he believes that, and that's the scariest thing about the whole deal. K.E. Purse writes, I paused Brit on the DVR so I can get undivided attention for SR Online. Thank you very much. Here's Jack, the Blue Jean Maker, who says, should Donald Trump focus more on manufacturing jobs or security, national security, and why?
They're both. I mean, they're both great issues for him, obviously. And he's events like what we see unfold in New Jersey and New York feed right into the security angle of all of it. And going back to the thing that Jonah said in the regular panel, which I think is an excellent point about the fact that by not blaming ISIS or noting the involvement of ISIS, you undercut the biggest argument the administration makes by allowing people to say, well, if it's not ISIS, then maybe it really is Islam. And the problem with that's the problem that you have when you have a president that his only strategy has been just that, and don't offend anybody, and don't ever mention anything about Islamic involvement in it. Whatever you think about George W. Bush and Dick Cheney, their strategy, and they did work to sort of minimize the amount that people blamed Islam, but it was with a much larger, robust strategy, and so they could get away with it. But they're not only losing, but they're undermining their own argument.
Bobby Millen says, does this trend with the FBI worry anyone on the panel? Mara, I mean, we always point out that the FBI works with local authorities and they do an amazing job keeping the country safe overall. These big investigations have had some red flags, that going back to the Boston Marathon bomber. We don't know the whole deal about Omar Mateen yet, and what was known and what wasn't known. And it does seem like they're not telling the whole story up front.
Well, first of all, we have to wait to see what kind of case they make. Now, I don't know why they didn't mention ISIS in this indictment, but
it's a complaint, really.
It's a complaint.
It's not an official indictment. So their explanation is that they are going to file it fully later, and they had to get this out so he didn't make bail. That's their explanation.
And you know what? I don't know their criteria. Maybe it's because he didn't pledge allegiance to them. They haven't taken responsibility for this one. Maybe they're embarrassed because it was just a pressure cooker bomb and it wasn't something more fabulous from their point of view, like San Bernardino. I don't know. But there's no doubt that this was a terrorist act, as the governor of New York said pretty quickly. And even Hillary Clinton now calls them radical jihadists. She is not pretending that there's not some kind of terrorism to this. But I think that we have to wait to see what the full indictment is, and I don't think there's any doubt that this guy, was self-radicalized, and that was his intent. They certainly accused him of using weapons of mass destruction.
Well, but he wasn't just self-radicalized, because we know he went to bad places, right? But I thought, maybe it's just a small thing, but in the setup, in the story that you guys did about all this, Preet Bharata, the DA in New York, he referred to it, I wrote it down, he's called it this misguided act of terror. Misguided is a remarkably weak word, right? I mean, misguided is when my daughter...
You can't water that down anymore.
Misguided is when my daughter rides her bike without a helmet. And I'm like, honey, that's misguided, But misguided act of terror, does that mean there's a...
brush your
meaning
teeth
that there's some acts of terror that are well-guided?
It's a bizarre way to phrase it. Normally, you would expect an administration, any public official, certainly some guy who wants to run for office one day, to sort of preen a little bit, this evil act of, whatever.
There is a pendulum, isn't there? There's a safe spot between you can slip more times in the tub than a terrorist attack that President Obama says, and the fire is coming and the terrorists are charging the gates on the southern border. I mean, isn't there some kind of middle ground?
There is, but if you're going to make a mistake, you should make a mistake on the side of there's a fire abroad, because there is. Look, this idea of misguided, that has a long heritage. It comes from the original, which is a senseless act of terror, act of... This is not a senseless act, even 9/11. A senseless act that changed America. It changed the Middle East. Look at how we go to airports. Entire lives. It's not senseless. It has a purpose, and it's succeeded to a large extent in its purpose. Unless you begin to recognize that from the beginning, you're undermining any attempt to counteract it. And I would disagree slightly on the FBI. I think the FBI is great at catching people, punishing them, getting them, etc. But we expect the FBI to do the preventative work. I can tell you, we enable psychiatrists to exert a judgment, a legal one that actually affects if people can be held or not. Are you a danger to yourself and others? I can assure you that is a crapshoot answering that. Nobody really knows, but we pretend that a psychiatrist that does. We are asking the FBI to determine, and they go through all these people. Every time we have an attack, it turns out, well, the FBI talked to the guy, the marathon guys. It is so hard to predict, and if you're going to sort of tag every guy who might be, you're not going to be able to do anything else in the FBI. It's the job of the White House, the Defense Department, the diplomats, and the military to prevent attacks by going after these people, and perhaps in sort of larger propaganda campaign.
There's a lot of people who say they're not that great on email investigations either, but
they're not that good.
I'll say the homeless are doing great. I mean, they've really stepped up in the war on terror, funding this bomb.
You can't expect a defensive approach to terrorism to succeed. And that's why I would go a little easy on the FBI. I think the blame belongs with the policy makers who have the means to counteract this. And it can be done.
Yeah. All right. Doug, 1959. Since this is the last online show before the debate, what does the panel think about the outcome? Which Donald Trump comes to the debate, which Hillary Clinton comes to the debate?
I think a very careful Donald Trump comes to the debate. I think he has learned. Obviously, he's been through a lot of them now, and he's also shown in the last last month or so that he is taking some direction from reasonable people around him, and he's willing to conform a little bit more than he has been in the past. But as far as I think Hillary Clinton, her strategy ought to be and will be trying to get him to blow his stack and trying to get under his skin, and his job will be to not let that happen somehow.
They say they're not doing that. the Clinton people because, first of all,
would they say
why would they
were?
say? But I just got off the phone with Kellyanne Conway, and she said that his model for this is the Commander-in-Chief Forum that they had on NBC, where they feel he was sober, prepared, gave succinct, clear answers, and that's what they're looking to do. Not so much that they're trying to change his personality, but a lot of people have said the bar for him is quite low. He just needs to show that he's a plausible Commander-in-Chief. He's not going to be outrageous or out of control. He's just going to look like he could be president.
Well, what about Hillary Clinton? The Wall Street Journal says that she's preparing for 2 Donald Trumps, one that's aggressive and one that's not. And she's doing a lot of prep, according to multiple reports.
Well, that's what she does. She does her homework, and then she does her homework, and she does her homework again. And I think I've talked to a lot of Democrats who are really worried. One of them said to me, when I hear about those big briefing books, I cringe, because the smaller the briefing book for her, the better. She needs to talk about, her problem is the first line of the argument, not the core of it. And she does have a tendency to be legalistic and wonky, and this is not, debates are not about scoring policy points. They are tests of character and demeanor. People are looking at the two people. They're not keeping a scorecard about family and medical leave.
For her, she treats it like science, and he treats it like art. And
well,
that's
it is
why,
art.
Yeah, and
it's
exactly.
performance art.
Yeah.
But we've seen in the primary debates some of those competitors try to get under Trump's skin. Sometimes it worked. Rubio had a couple of things that got him worked up. But for the most part, Trump came out of those exchanges seemingly looking better.
Yeah, I think it's a complete apples and oranges thing for a lot of different reasons. Some that helped Trump and some that hurt him. First of all, Trump has never done a debate like this. He's never done 90 minutes with just one other person. There's reports that Hillary Clinton wants to fact check him because they don't think that Lester Holt will. I think that Trump will not like that. But my guess is, and call me crazy, she will have a better command of the facts than Donald Trump will. Moreover, people tend to forget, and I don't mean this in any pejorative sense, people tend to forget that Hillary Clinton's a woman. Because she's been around, so she doesn't get to play the gender card in a way that she wants to. But that's an actual advantage in a debate. One of the only times that
Rick Lazio.
Yeah, exactly. One of the only times that Trump was ever really hurt, I mean, just hurt in a debate, was up against Carly Fiorina, because Trump's alpha dog stuff does not work on women the same way it does on men. And we saw that with Rick Lazio. You know, just imagine if Trump had done what he did to Jeb Bush to a woman. It would have aroused a completely different reaction. And you can call it sexism, you can say it's unfair, double standard, fine. That's how TV works. And so my guess is that Trump will keep it together for the first 45 minutes or so, but I could see him actually stepping on it just once and seeming to sort of bully a woman or be rude to a woman, and it won't play well, particularly with the demographics that he needs to win over, which are white college-educated women.
And just in case anybody doesn't get that, Rick Lazio was running for Senate, New York Senate, against Hillary Clinton, and he walked across the stage during one of the debates and handed her a piece of paper, and it looked like he was getting in her face, and it kind of changed the dynamics.
She was very new to as a candidate back then. She also has a lot of gendered problems. Number one, Brett O'Donnell, who's a really experienced Republican debate coach, said that it's people who are on offense and are more aggressive generally win debates. But if you're a woman, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Because if you are aggressive, you look harsh. That certainly is one of her problems. It's going to be hard for her. She's going to have to find some warm, funny way to put him down without looking that she's hectoring him or she's being your obnoxious mother-in-law. And I'm not sure what it is. She has had moments of that. Back when Barack Obama in New Hampshire said you're likable enough, she was really charming. Remember what she said? People forget her response. She said, "Oh, you hurt my feelings." It was kind of cute and funny. But she's going to have to think of those things. And it's going to be very, very hard.
Net Raider says, will there be an earpiece check before the debate? I'm pretty sure. Yeah, there wasn't one last time.
Wasn't an earpiece or wasn't an earpiece check?
I know there wasn't an earpiece check, but
we don't think there was an earpiece either.
Of course not.
No, but that's one of the great,
conspiracy
it was theories about her.
George W. Bush had it.
Yeah.
Barack Obama had it.
Yeah.
Everybody has the mysterious
right, but
earpiece.
it's not the messages from headquarters.
Right. having dealt with that for most of my career, it's not as easy as it sounds to talk coherently as someone is talking in your ear, even if it happened. But we don't believe it happened. Okay.
I can imagine the advisors having an argument among themselves into the earpiece. Say this. No, you idiot. Say that. Oh, this raging.
Rodney Stone just like, slap her.
Yeah. That's not what Rodney Stone would say. He would use a word before that.
NetRaider also says, but Trump knows how TV works. Is that an advantage?
Yep.
Is the apprentice, I mean, we're going to hear this from Clinton people from now until Monday, that he's a TV guy. He knows how to work the cameras. He's under the lights. Is that,
I think
real?
I think it's without a doubt, and it's what we've seen all along. He's a master of the medium. He's a master showman. He knows how to. And this is the thing that a lot of. I mean, I think it's actually a good thing about whatever you want to call it, reality TV, where they walk up to that line and they know. Sometimes you inch over it, but you try to sort of stay just this side of it, and it is very captivating, and he's very good at that. And I think that is a tremendous advantage as long as he doesn't go.
So the conventional
problem
media
is that he's gone over it too many times already.
The conventional media meme now is that media should not be the same to these two candidates, and you need to go harder after Donald Trump. And in the wake of Matt Lauer and that Commander-in-Chief forum, is Lester Holt going to feel the pressure from NBC to somehow change his demeanor and his presentation when it comes to Trump?
What is so bizarre about that, and some people have been open about it, that, a lot of columnists, liberal columnists have said, you can't be neutral in your reporting, even if you're a reporter. This is, on the one hand, Satan, on the other hand, somebody normal.
And this is not Satan. This is just changing the window blinds.
It's the Lord speaking to us in his own way. Jump is what he's saying. The irony is they've been doing that for 50 years. They have. I mean, I remember writing a column in 2000. I simply quoted a half a dozen headlines about Gore, half a dozen about the Bush, and it was so obvious what the slant was. This has been going on forever. They now feel, however, that with Trump, who's so outside the sort of mainstream of candidates, that they can be open about this. And they add on to that this weird thing that everybody has a moral obligation to be unbalanced and to be more anti-Trump. And I think they're going to lose. But it didn't work.
Isn't it almost reverse? Isn't it like when more that happens, it's like kryptonite?
Yeah, I think this is a huge favor to Donald Trump. The more you get the New York Times or the Washington Post to seem like they have it in for the guy, the more that confirms his message. And I think they would do much better if they actually took a step back, someone who's not a fan of Donald Trump, and just let him speak for himself rather than seem like he's this guy on the ropes taking on the establishment, taking on everybody. But at the same time, I agree with Charles entirely. I mean, my favorite example of this was Daniel Shore when he was the chief correspondent for the CBS Evening News in the 1960s, said that Barry Goldwater's planned vacation in Europe was really a clandestine effort to meet up in Hitler's stomping ground with clandestine members of the neo-Nazi right. And it was completely not true. What I think what we're seeing from a lot of people in the mainstream media is their frustration because they've been crying wolf for so long. They tell us Mitt Romney was a racist. They told us John McCain was a racist. They go down these lists, and now all of a sudden when they want to say that, because they actually believe it now, that Donald Trump is a racist, no one's listening to them, and it's a real problem.
Wait, I have a slightly different take on this. What I heard people saying is not, you have to, in NBC, that's why you have to be harder on Trump. I heard people saying you should treat them equally, and she got treated tougher than it seemed like Donald Trump was treated then. That was what I heard from Democrats. The other thing is, in terms of this running against the media, Donald Trump has been out there laying down this predicate. Lester Holt is biased. He's a Democrat. In fact, Lester Holt is a registered Republican since 2003. It's rigged. just like he said the only way he can lose the election if it's stolen from him. So he's playing this game too.
Oh, I agree. I think it's
I
reprehensible.
agree with everything you're saying about the media. That is a huge mistake. But he is out there saying the system is rigged. He's laying down the predicate for in case he does badly, he knows who to blame.
Yeah.
It's already
no,
set up.
I mean that's fair, Mar. But when you have the New York Times in a
I agree with
story,
what you're
not
saying
an
about the New York
editorial, a
Times. I
story
agree 100%.
saying that reporters need to be different.
That is wrong. But I'm just saying Donald Trump has used the media as a foil very successfully all along, and he's doing it again for the debate.
Charlie.
And I think the thing that really drives a lot of people to madness in the media is the fact that not only do they think Donald Trump is racist and despise him and think all these terrible things about him, but then they go home and everybody's like, you're giving him all this free time. He's getting a free ride everywhere. And they're like, no, I hate him. And so then they have to double down on how much
Scribble.
Yeah.
The dynamic is when he's running among the Republicans in the Republican primary, you give him all the time in the world.
Exactly.
You'd like to, if you're a liberal and you actually have your preferences, you give him free rein. He discredits, at least in the mind of the liberal reporters, he discredits the whole GOP. If he ends up winning the nomination, he's going to be easily crushed.
That's their thinking.
That's what they think, and it'll be a Barry Goldwater. So what's not to like?
And here we are. Here we are.
And now they're in a panic. They have helped
almost
to create
to
this
October,
guy.
and he's up in Ohio, Nevada, and North Carolina.
And that's why the headline, I have to say, look, I haven't been a fan of Trump, but I have never seen such slanted front page coverage. I'm not talking about editorial, just the front page headlines. I just opened it in the morning, and I am astonished by how anti-Trump it is. There's not even an attempt to disguise it.
Let's see. Florida Barry says, Brett really enjoying special report on Sundays now. Is there a Sunday online show coming soon? Hey, I'm working a lot. I'm on a lot.
He's got a family. Can you remember that?
When does Morning Brett start?
I do Mondays on Fox and Friends. Holy cow.
He'll come into your house and do it from there.
Tigger says, if Lester Holt is a Republican, then he's a great actor. Clinton is not treated harder at all. Moderator bias is baked into the cake. And would you think, just to continue this, is there a protective nature? As much as there's an aggressive nature about going after Donald Trump, is there a protective nature about Hillary Clinton? Some of those email stories were pretty tough.
Yeah, no, some of the email stories were pretty tough, and I still think that could, if she's elected, that'll be basically the whitewater of her administration, because they're not going to let go of some of those stories. But the Charlie Rose interview with Bill Clinton, where they took out the word frequently about her, fainting spells or whatever, vapors or whatever she's had in the past from not drinking horrible water. There's a lot of that kind of stuff where. I think there is bending over backwards, but the problem is I also think people, and a lot of my right-wing friends do not understand this. A lot of people in the National Press Corps really don't like Hillary Clinton, and she doesn't like them right back. And she, remember,
well, part of it stems from how the press is treated and the access and the whole thing.
Remember the campaign began, if you walk around D.C. every now and then, you'll see these daycare centers. They'll take little kids for a walk and they'll tie them all together into ropes. They did that with the press in New Hampshire, and they're like, it's a double-edged sword.
You ask the Clinton campaign, they do not feel like they're getting a pass from the media at all.
No, I think that's fair.
They think quite the contrary.
And the kids on the rope line are better behaved over
They do stay. All right, last word. So will this debate be determinative in this race?
It has the potential to be utterly determinative. I think the odds of that happening are probably like 1 in 2, perhaps. I think more than most. It is also possible they will simply confirm pre-existing ideas people have of Trump, pre-existing ideas of Hillary, which are quite, as you saw in the polls, firm, and it'll be a wash. But I think it has the potential, unlike a lot of other races, to really shift the ground.
When you think back on debates that were determinative, a lot of debates, very few. You saw, Barack Obama lost his first debate with Mitt Romney, didn't really matter. But I'll tell you one that probably was, Al Gore and George W. Bush. the rolling eyes, and granted, he ended up winning the popular vote, but not by enough.
And chasing him around the stage.
Chasing him around the stage. And then, on the other hand, you got Dan Quayle and Lloyd Benson. Dan Quayle went on to be the vice president. Yeah. He went on to be the vice president, but he probably was mortally wounded politically after that.
And we're all excited about the first debate for obvious reasons, and so is our viewers, but there's a very good chance it won't be the first debate that is the determinative one, that it could be
the second or third,
wind up being the third one when people's guard is down and either Donald Trump gets mad or she gets...
Barcella says, should or will Donald Trump refer to Hillary as Crooked Hillary during this debate?
I think he's going to probably refer to her as the
That's
first
a great
lady.
question. I mean, he could slip into it.
If he does, it's a huge
catch himself.
I think he's going to...
It's a big mistake if he does.
But if he refers to her as First Lady and the Secretary of State, I think that he can do that in a very effective way.
Remember one of the final debates...
Secretary of State.
Crooked Secretary of State? There you go. One of the final debates primary, he said Senator Cruz, not Lion Ted.
Yeah.
And he died. He started talking about
and we
Senator
all wrote stories
Rubio.
saying, look, he's more presidential. We don't know. And what he said to O'Reilly on Monday, he said, I have no idea. I'm going to see how it feels in the moment. I'll see how she treats me fairly or not. I mean, Donald Trump believes in his own instincts above all.
But in all of those stories, we also had to write that he normally refers to him as Lion Ted. So we still got all the lines in.
All right, last word, Jonah. Determinative?
I think probably not. I think maybe collectively the three are. I think that a lot of us are getting too caught up in how the normal viewer is going to watch it, rather than, you had this poll where the base is 93, 97% are all going to vote.
Up to 95 in North
We're up to
Carolina.
very few.
So we're talking about very specific pockets of the electorate in a few states. And I think Hillary's team certainly will be more disciplined and think about that more, about how to pitch her message, pinpoint to those guys. Well, Donald Trump, and one of the reasons why I think he got the nomination, and it's one of the things I actually have praised him for, is he gives a broad spectrum message. Either you like it or you don't. And I'm not sure that's what you necessarily want going into the debates, but he's not going to change now.
Because this is a base election.
Right.
This is a base election.
In the end, it could sway the remaining 11 undecided who can be named.
Maybe by name, yeah, we know that now. I think that you're right. If he gets over the commander-in-chief bar, that's really the question. If people can see him behind the Resolute desk in the Oval Office.
And the Mexico thing helped.
That helped him. And just to point out how close this race may be, think about Hillary Clinton campaigning in Nebraska and Donald Trump campaigning in Maine. These are places that break down the congressional districts and they divvy up the electoral votes.
Yeah.
If they can get one, it could be the one that takes them to 270. Pretty amazing. Panel, thank you. Thank you for joining us. Special Report Online every Wednesday. I think we have it next week. I'm sure we will. After the debate. So we'll see you throughout the week. All the coverage. Control room, little goodbye.